The $10 bill may be getting a feminine facelift. Treasury Secretary Jack Lew says he wants to put the portrait of a woman on the bill, and he's taking suggestions from the public. Well, whoever wins will end up replacing the nation's very first Treasury Secretary, Alexander Hamilton. I spoke earlier today with the author and Hamilton biographer Ron Chernow about the Founding Fathers' legacy.
Alexander Hamilton is the most important person in American history who never made it to the presidency, and he deserves his place on the $10 bill. Let me just rattle off some of his accomplishments. He takes over the federal government at a time when the country is bankrupt. He restores America's credit. He creates our first central bank, the first bank in the United States, the forerunner of the Federal Reserve Board. He creates the Coast Guard and the Customs Service. He creates our first fiscal and monetary system, our first tax and accounting system. He creates the entire financial infrastructure of the United States and was the architect of much of the federal government.
He was also the subject now of a musical. I understand that's where you're headed. Tell us about the musical based on your biography, Alexander Hamilton.
Well, the musical manages to be hip and cool and entertaining at the same time. It's enthralling and very erudite. It follows my biography and the life of Alexander Hamilton very, very faithfully. And I find it sadly ironic that at a moment when this musical is bringing Alexander Hamilton to the attention of a new generation, that the Treasury Secretary is trying to downgrade him on the $10 bill. This is a moment where we should be celebrating Alexander Hamilton, which I think the show does brilliantly.
If Alexander Hamilton were alive and he was also sensitive to the practicalities of finance, who do you think he would like to see on a new $10 bill?
Hamilton was a great abolitionist. He founded something called the New York Manumission Society, the first abolitionist society in New York. He was very sympathetic to Native Americans and lent his name and prestige to the creation of a school to educate Native Americans in upstate New York. So this was somebody who had a broad vision of the country, and he promoted immigration. So I think that Hamilton would be sympathetic to the idea of expanding the variety of people that we have on the currency. But I think that he deserves his place on the $10 bill. Among other things, he's the figure most identified with American currency. It was Hamilton who endorsed the dollar as our basic currency. It was Hamilton who divided it into smaller coins on a decimal basis. It was Hamilton who proposed a mint. So to take somebody who was really the great visionary of our monetary system and remove him from the currency seems completely wrong-headed to me.
All right. Having said that, Ron Chernow, if indeed Secretary of the Treasury Jack Lew gave you a telephone call and asked your personal thoughts on if you had to select a woman, a likeness of a woman to be on a new piece of American currency, who would it be?
Well, you know, the names that have been mentioned, Harriet Tubman, Susan B. Anthony, Eleanor Roosevelt, I greatly admire all of those women. But I think that we have to be careful not to correct one historical injustice by committing another. And I think that for so long, Hamilton was the neglected and misunderstood founding father. Now, finally, he's having his moment in the sun. I think the president who clearly is up for reconsideration is Andrew Jackson on the $20 bill. Jackson owned hundreds of slaves during his life. He oversaw the forced relocation of Indians from the eastern seaboard to Oklahoma, the so-called Trail of Tears, in which several thousand Cherokees died. I mean, he's a candidate for reappraisal, but I really would like to see Hamilton maintain his place on the $10 bill. There's no big fancy memorial to Hamilton in Washington, the way that Washington, Lincoln, FDR, and Jefferson have. He's not carved up there on Mount Rushmore, but I feel that this is really the place where we have decided to honor him as on the $10 bill, and they should keep him there.